Welcome to another episode of Talking Backstage. I'm your host, Tom Lund. Today's guest is one of my dear friends from high school, Mr. PJ Bovee. Before the stay-at-home orders in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, PJ was playing in the orchestra pits for theaters down in San Diego. The pit is the area where musicians play during a musical performance. PJ specializes in stringed instruments, primarily the bass and guitar. In this episode, PJ shares with us some stories of his time as a student at Saugus High School, as well as some of the productions he's played for down in San Diego. So PJ, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, man.
First question off, what schools did you attend when you were living in the Santa Clarita area?
Bouquet Canyon Elementary, and then I went Arroyo Seco, and then Saugus High.
Fantastic. And when did you first get inspired to pursue music? Like when did music enter into your life?
That's like a multifaceted question. So I think it entered my life before I was born. The story is reminiscent of an ABBA song. She was dancing before she could walk, right? For me, I was humming before I could talk.
Wow, okay.
Being born in the mid to late 80s, Phantom of the Opera was huge. And my mother was a very big fan. And that soundtrack, pumped through our house and our vehicles forever and ever and ever. So before I could walk, before I could talk, I would start humming Music of the Night.
Wow.
Right? And crawl over to the speakers and start humming that song. And that's how my folks knew, like, oh, PJ wants, to hear Phantom or whatever, some music in general. When I was young, we started going to church in the Orange County. We went to the Crystal Cathedral. My mom got real into the whole Hour of Power thing, that big giant church. The creative scene there was huge. Started singing in like youth choirs and stuff when I was young and taking part in some other classes, and met a man named Mark Williams who was teaching at the Colburn School of Performing Arts in downtown LA. And we started going there for choir and voice lessons and some other music stuff. Throughout most of that time, I was playing baseball as well. And I thought I was going to at least play some college ball. Split my elbow in half, so stopped playing baseball. So then I realized and started really thinking like, okay, cool, well, music. And at the time, I was actually really into like the production side of it.
So like when did guitar playing enter into your life? Because I remember in high school, obviously, I remember you always had like a guitar with you. So when did that come about? Was that in school?
Yeah, so I started playing for real at 12. I think I was self-taught, thankfully at the time. So in junior high, that's when we did like those magazine drives, right?
Oh, yeah.
So each year I got, whatever subscriptions were available to guitar mags.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And YouTube wasn't a thing yet, so there weren't lessons like that. But there were some new tab sites. You could go and find some songs with some chords or some tabs. So I started teaching myself out of magazines and asking friends at the music school and, some light websites and stuff. And so then I started taking lessons when I was like 13, probably for about a year or two. And then I stopped taking lessons and just studied on my own until I got to college and started taking lessons with some cats down here and obviously in school where it's required.
So what type of stuff were you studying when you went down to school? Was it for like guitar performance?
Yeah. So had I stayed in school, I apologize. I know this is geared towards students, kids.
Hey man, I just finished my degree, so I get it.
But I also will say to you young folks that school isn't necessarily for everyone, or the type of school that you think is meant to be, college, university, might not be it. There's trade schools, there's performing schools, there's there's lots of options out there for us to learn what we want to learn and be passionate and successful about. So anyway, had I stayed in school, I was getting a degree in jazz guitar performance.
Wow, okay. What are some mentors or teachers that have had an influence on you in the music realm?
The two specific mentors from my younger days would be Mark Williams. I mentioned him. Right. We met him at the church and followed him to the Colburn School. And I can trace everything back to him. He was such an influential part of my life, let alone music, from when I was 4 until he passed away 2013. So anyway, my story there about him is, so he had this credo, and he wrote a children's opera based on this credo mantra, whatever, called Viva Musica. right after he passed away, I got that tattooed there.
Oh, cool, man.
Because that's how big of a freaking deal he was to me. The other one who remains a dear, dear, dear friend to this day, and I think to you as well, Tom, is April Dooley. She was our choir director in high school, and she was huge. Not only was she teaching me, music and smart theory, she went above and beyond. It wasn't just singing. She knew how to get me in contact with people that would take me that next step. So she lived in San Diego and went to school down here for a long time, and she still had a lot of friends and contacts here. So towards the end of my high school career, junior, senior year, she introduced me to this jazz guitar player named Peter Sprague. April she just knew that we would be, I think what she used to say was, we were kindred spirits. And the first chance she got to introduce us, and I think I remember her saying, she's like, I just got to get you in the room with him. You guys are going to hit it off, and you're just going to fly away, and you're going to be, your thing.
You studied jazz guitar. You're hanging out with, like you said, the player's player. People know who he is. He's known in the jazz community. Now you're playing for musical theater. When did that shift come? How did that come about, getting into doing musical theater? Yeah,
man. So it was totally random and weird and just so lucky. Just the stars aligned, and it's like this turning point in my life that I look back on frequently and just love. So one of the jazz combos I was in, Kenneth was like the band leader for that. So we knew each other and everything. And then one day, just completely out of the blue, he came up to me outside the music building, and he said, "Hey, how's your reading?" I'm like, I gotta, I'm working on it. I didn't know what the question was about, and he's like, oh, never mind. It's just like, can you work something up? I'm desperate. I need a sub for this theater show I'm doing, blah, blah, blah. I said, yeah, I'll do it. And because the thing that he said that made me feel a lot better, and that I could do it was a rock show. So it was Tick, Tick, Boom.
Oh, yeah, man. It's a good show.
Right. Excellent show. It's power chords and it's rock and roll. And so it's not difficult. But at the time, my first, professional gig, and I'm subbing for a guy, and your job as a sub is to not get noticed, So like I worked it up for weeks. Like I had that thing memorized.
We've brought up with a couple of people, and as you know, in the entertainment industry, a lot of how we get our jobs a lot of times is who you know. And like you said, one show led to the next show, led to the next show. Now, do you think in your world as a pit musician, do you think it's who you know, or do you think it's the skills that you bring as a musician, or do you think it's a little bit of both?
It's absolutely both, but it is like the scales of justice. The scales are weighed down or weighted for who you know. In 14 years of doing this professionally, I've auditioned once.
Wow.
And it was like 5 years into doing this. That's 13 or 14 years. It's a few hundred different shows, and I've done an audition. It's the who you know is a huge part, as long as you're good at your job.
Right. Now, I know, just because I know you personally, I know you've played guitar, you've played bass. I think, did you play mandolin on something or something like that? Or I feel like you've played other. So how did that come about? How did you go from playing, a 6-string instrument like a guitar into now basically any acoustic, it seems, stringed instrument that a pit will need?
Yeah, for sure. And actually, I've done a few gigs on keyboard as well.
Oh.
So anyway, the multi-instrument thing, it's out of necessity in the theater. When you're a guitar player playing musical theater, a lot of books have multiple instruments in it. And it's just a given that you're going to know how to do these. And if you can't, you don't get hired. So I obtained instruments and skills kind of as I went. So whatever first show I did with mandolin, I'm looking this way because my mandolin's sitting there. I think it was My Son Pinocchio was the name of it, and it had some mando parts in it. And I didn't,
of course,
yeah, it was a fun show. I didn't know that it had Mando in it until the day of the first rehearsal. I have found a neat little niche for myself that keeps me working a little bit more than some of my friends. And that is that I also play bass. Until recently, some people in town knew me as a bass player only.
Oh, I gotcha. Yep.
And some people knew me as a guitar player only. And now people are starting to connect like, oh, he does both. Yeah.
So what do you think's been one of the biggest challenges you faced as a professional, musician playing in musical theater?
Early on in my career, like I said, there was so much focus on just like learning my part and doing it that it took me a while to learn the listening aspect. Listen to what everybody else is playing and play to that and adjust to it and be a cohesive band. And not just like, I'm a player, you're a player, you're a player. But like I've established myself, I have a career, I'm proud of my career, I'm excited with my career, and I've been doing a long time and played a lot of shows and met a lot of people. I still have this like crazy fear. Maybe all artists, I think all artists have this, right? I just have this fear, like, what if I never get called again? What if this is the last gig I ever play? Coupled with this challenge of wanting to have and be around my family.
Yeah.
Because I have a beautiful and smart and hilarious wife that I actually like to spend time with.
Funny how that works.
I know, right? And then we have a daughter. She's 2.5. She's going to be 3 in a couple months here. And she's also gorgeous and hilarious and so fun to be around.
All right, man. So you've dropped little nuggets throughout the interview, especially going, to the viewers this, to the viewers that. So if there was something, either like one particular piece of advice or something that you wish you had heard as a young musician or something that you could give to this next generation of musicians, what's a piece of advice you would give them?
If you are into it now, just keep doing it. Keep doing it. And so I've made jokes about school and education and how I got along with that and whatever. I value education more than anything else. Like I said, I taught guitar and bass lessons for a long time. The fact that I didn't love teaching so much and I didn't love school, but I value education, I tried to make up for that just, cosmically or karmically by trying to spread education. And I've written my own guitar book that I sell, so I think education is important. So I think my advice, my long rambling advice is if you're into it, keep at it and seek out the education for that, the learning for that, however makes sense for you. YouTube is insane. The lessons and the tutorials you can get to learn instruments and sing and whatever, or songs in general, theory, whatever you want. I mean, anything is up there, and so many other, websites and paid courses for super cheap. So I think my biggest advice is just to seek it out.
Yeah.
Don't expect it to come to you. And that's something that I think I started with when I was young and then fell away from. Like I started seeking it out and then got to this level of like being comfortable and then kind of stopped searching. Always be searching. If it's something you're interested in, do it. Woodworking, guitar, cooking, whatever it is, those are my 3 things. Whatever it is, find it, seek it out. And then the other thing is like, all right, cool. You might not want to be a professional or you might fall into some other career or whatever, but like, just don't stop. Like if it makes you happy, keep doing it, who cares? Awesome. It's never too late also to pick it back up, right?
Yeah, awesome, man. No, I really appreciate you taking time out. I know this has been a hard time. Obviously, us live entertainers and working in theater, it's been a real challenging time. So thank you for being able to take time with us, talking backstage. And I hope the theaters open back up soon and you can get back to work, man. So thanks for taking out time and talking with us.
Thank you. I sure appreciate it. And I hope the same for you and all the kiddos at your school there. And thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thanks, PJ. We'll talk soon, okay? Thanks for tuning in to Talking Backstage. To watch other episodes, make sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Until next time, I'm your host, Tom Lund. I'll see you backstage.